In 2021, a 3-year-old boy vanished into thick Australian bushland near a rural property in New South Wales. Snakes, wild dogs, rough terrain, no food, freezing nights. Search teams combed the area for 3 straight days. They found him alive. Confused, dehydrated, scratched up, but alive, having spent 3 nights alone in a landscape that kills grown adults who know exactly what they're doing. Here's the detail nobody can fully explain. He wasn't hidden the entire time. He was almost certainly in range of animals that could have ended him in seconds. None of them did. And this isn't a one-off miracle. Story after story surfaces from completely different continents. A toddler found alive in Argentina, kept warm by wild cats. Children pulled from forests after nights spent near wolves. A lost child, a wilderness full of teeth, and an ending nobody predicted. So here's the real question. Why does the most defenseless human being alive sometimes walk straight through a food chain built to eat exactly that, untouched? The answer isn't one lucky break. It's at least 6 different signals, misfiring at once, and the last one flips the whole story upside down. Start with something predators are actually built to read. Posture. A hunting animal survives by gambling carefully. One bad kick, one deep cut from prey fighting back, and a predator can be dead within a week. So they read body language constantly, sorting the world into 2 piles, threat and not threat. An adult human stands upright, walks with purpose, and holds a steady stare. To a wild animal, that's the exact posture of something dangerous. A small child does none of it. Low to the ground, unsteady, wandering in loops with no clear direction and no fixed gaze. Researchers studying dog behavior have found something almost identical. Dogs consistently read children as smaller, softer, and dramatically less threatening than adults standing nearby. Out in the wild, that same math applies. Looking harmless isn't weakness. Sometimes, it's the exact thing that keeps you off the list entirely. Here's a rule of the wild that catches almost everyone off guard. Chasing isn't a choice, it's a switch. A predator's pursuit instinct is wired directly to fleeing movement. The instant something bolts, pursuit begins almost involuntarily, millions of years of programming firing before conscious thought gets involved. Watch a house cat ignore a motionless piece of string, then pounce the second you drag it fast across the floor. Big predators are running the exact same software, just with higher stakes attached. Adults in genuine panic almost always run, which is precisely the worst possible move. A lost child usually doesn't. They freeze. They sit down in the grass and cry. There's no fleeing shape to chase, no sudden sprint, locking a predator's eyes onto a target. The child isn't being brave. They have no idea any of this is happening, but not knowing the rules accidentally keeps them from breaking the one that matters most. Back in the 1940s, Austrian zoologist Konrad Lorenz described something he called Kindchenschema, the baby schema, a big rounded head, wide eyes set low, chubby cheeks, short stubby limbs. Lorenz argued this exact combination functions like a physical key, unlocking a caretaking response wherever it appears. And here's the strange part. He proposed the key isn't species-specific. It's why a puppy, a kitten, and a human infant all trigger something almost identical in us. And it's the exact same trick cartoon animators exploited decades ago by drawing enormous eyes onto simple round heads. A 2009 neuroimaging study pushed this further, finding that adult brains looking at baby faces show activity in the nucleus accumbens, a core piece of the brain's reward circuitry, even in people with no children of their own. So flip the mechanism around. When a wild animal encounters a small, round-faced human child, it may be catching a faint echo of that same ancient signal, tuned originally for its own young. Not prey, not rival, something closer to a cub. Now listen to what a lost child actually sounds like. High, cracked, rising, desperate. That specific acoustic pattern shows up almost everywhere across the animal kingdom. Baby birds, seal pups, puppies, human infants, all cry in a similar rising, high-pitched register the moment they're in danger, and the parents of those species are wired to snap toward that exact sound. A human child sobbing alone in the wilderness is, in effect, broadcasting on a frequency an enormous range of species already recognizes instinctively. It doesn't register as a challenge or a territorial call. It registers as something small and helpless, calling out. In animals with strong parental wiring, that sound can pull a thread of care loose instead of triggering hunger. The child isn't signaling anything on purpose. They just want a parent. The wild, every so often, answers anyway. Not every animal that approaches is confused about food or parenting. Sometimes the actual driver is simpler: curiosity. Highly intelligent species tend to investigate strange things before attacking them, and that pause can change everything. In 2004, off Ocean Beach in New Zealand, a group of swimmers was suddenly surrounded by a pod of dolphins, packed tight, refusing to let anyone drift apart. One swimmer eventually spotted the reason: a great white shark cruising directly beneath them. The dolphins held that formation for roughly 40 minutes until everyone reached shore safely. Nobody can prove the dolphins dolphins made a conscious moral choice, but the same pattern shows up repeatedly across elephants, apes, ravens, and other genuinely intelligent animals. They tend to meet something unfamiliar with interest before instinct takes over. A lost child is nothing if not new, strange, and worth a closer look. And while an animal is busy studying something, it generally isn't hunting it. Sometimes curiosity isn't even the strangest outcome on record. In 2008, police in Argentina discovered an abandoned one-year-old alive in the middle of a brutal winter, surrounded by 8 feral cats curled tightly around him, keeping him warm through nights that should have killed an infant that size. That case isn't as isolated as it sounds. Historical records document roughly 100 cases of so-called feral children across recorded history, and a striking number involve members of the dog family specifically: wolves, dogs, foxes, the same animals that show up again and again in humanity's oldest myths about children raised by beasts. Part of the explanation is almost boring: warmth. A small body radiating heat and an animal seeking the exact same thing will naturally end up tangled together against the cold, two creatures solving one shared problem. Part of it may be that same baby face signal misfiring in a new direction, and part of it comes down to how simply animal social categories work. You're either inside the group or outside it, and once a child stops registering as prey or threat, it can slide quietly across that line into something closer to belonging. Here's the layer that reframes everything you just heard. We assume humans are the fragile ones out in nature. We're not. In 2023, researchers led by ecologist Liana Zanet played recorded sounds at watering holes across South Africa's Greater Kruger National Park and tracked which species fled fastest. Across 19 different mammal species, rhinos, elephants, giraffes, leopards, hyenas, animals were roughly twice as likely to flee the sound of a calm human voice as the sound of a lion's roar. Read that again. Ordinary human conversation frightened the savannah more than a predator built specifically to kill on that same ground. To most wild animals, we're the apex threat, and they carry that fear in their instincts the same way we carry fear of snakes. But a small child hasn't grown into that reputation yet. No adult posture, no confident stride, no low, commanding voice. The exact features that make a grown human genuinely terrifying are the features a lost child simply doesn't have yet. The deepest fear response an animal has, built specifically to avoid us, never gets triggered at all. Before the twist, one honest caveat. None of this means children are safe out there. They aren't. The stories that reach you are the ones that ended well, and survivorship bias quietly hides every version that didn't. For every rescue that makes headlines, there are almost certainly cases that ended in silence and never became a story at all. In the very same Kenyan region where a lost child once survived days among predators, 2 lions killed dozens of railway workers in 1898, a case still infamous enough to have its own name to this day. Both things are true at once. The wild is genuinely dangerous, and it sometimes, inexplicably, chooses not to strike. Here's the twist. We tend to tell these stories as though the animal made a decision, some flicker of mercy overriding instinct at the last second. Look closer, and a stranger picture appears. In most cases, nothing was decided at all. The child simply never became prey in the first place. They didn't stalk, so they never read as a threat. They didn't run, so pursuit never triggered. They cried in a tone that lands as young, not rival. Their face tripped an ancient caretaking signal built for cubs, and they didn't carry the posture of the one animal every predator on that landscape has learned, over generations, to genuinely fear. Every single filter a predator uses to sort the world into eat and don't eat landed in the wrong box, one after another. There was no mercy required, because there was never really a decision on the table. The wild didn't spare that child out of love. The child simply never gave it a reason to attack. That's not a fairy tale. That's biology, running its oldest calculations exactly the way it was built to, on a small, frightened creature that happened to check every wrong box at once and walked out the other side. See you in the next one.